I think Republicans for the longest time have been like the obvious face of Christianity.
Yeah, so the Pharisees were the religious conservatives at the time. They believed the right things. Their problem was they didn't actually live it out.
Big fan of the Corinthians. The Corinthians are great. They've got chapter 1. They've got chapter 8. They've got the love. They've got the love in the Corinthians. And I actually wrote the Corinthians.
Hey everybody, my name is Jesse, and this is NewWayStories podcast. We are a comedy podcast that talks about creativity, comics, and cinema. NewWayStories is my fake publishing company, but it's a real podcast. So here we are, and with me, as always, Darius Giles is my host, and Ben Salazar, our indomitable producer.
Indomitable. We've tried to dominate him. We've tried to dominate him.
But he's indomitable.
And he's indomitable.
Today we actually have a very special guest. His name is Alex Kocman, and he is an author. He works with the Association of Baptists for World Evangelism. He's passionate about spreading the gospel, and so we're pumped to have Alex with us.
Stoked to be here. Thanks, guys.
Alex makes us look extremely effeminate.
Well, you're burning the lead a
lot.
lot.
Of Henry Cavill and the beard of Socrates.
You're burning the lead a little bit for me on one of our topics coming forward. And Alex is he talks about engaging in politics and culture and what that looks like in being a gospel centered person, Christ follower, and also masculinity. We're going to get into all of that today. First, Alex, give us the elevator pitch bio of who Alex Kocman is.
Yeah, that's great. So I have 4, soon to be 5 humans that my wife and I have made. Well, we made 3 out of the 4.
Okay.
One of them is adopted, but I'll tell you, we made our own people and it's great. And I highly recommend it. That's the biggest thing. Outside of that, I serve with ABWE. We're a global missions agency. So we get to send missionaries. So, I'm right here on the front lines of the mission field, which is obviously South Central Pennsylvania.
Let's go.
That's how we roll.
That's
right.
There's a lot of Amish out there that need to be
originally from Philly. Yeah, so go Birds. Just wanted to get that in there as well.
Yeah, they're the worst 7-2 team I've ever seen.
That's you know what? I will take that as a compliment and thank you. And I received that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're still 7-2, 8-2, but sorry, these nerds.
Look, we had such a long drought, that it just feels good.
As a Washington sports fan, please don't talk to me about winning droughts. That's it's still a little too soon.
Yeah, drought. It's been a while since we've been to the Super Bowl.
I'm sorry. Darius and Ben they're strictly nerds, and so I don't really get to talk about sports often. But you're an East Coast guy, and they just announced that Aaron Judge won the American League MVP over Cal Raleigh, who is the catcher. He hit more home runs than any catcher ever hit in history. He's actually a really good catcher. This East Coast bias this is actually why I just brought you on. I wanted to just strictly talk about East Coast bias towards athletes. It's insane to me. Do you watch baseball at all, or have I just started a rant for no reason?
You're definitely out there on a limb by yourself. I'm not a baseball guy at all, but I'm an East Coast guy my whole life. And we're the best part of the country.
Yeah.
And we know it.
We know it. I mean, especially the Philly people. I mean, if you can throw snowballs at Santa Claus and be okay with yourself, I think
it's the city of brotherly shove.
That's right. That's right. So, okay, sorry to interrupt. We'll get into Cal Raleigh talk later.
Probably not.
Go Birds, I think, is where we left off.
I think that's where we left off.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
I'm also a churchman like you guys. So my heart's in the local church. Serve as an elder and on staff leading communications and worship and missions efforts at Faith Bible Fellowship Church of York here too. So, that's my passion, is just to see the overlap of the local church and embracing kind of the larger mission of Christ. And as far as, my story, how I got here, I've got a boring testimony, which is great. And it's the exact kind of testimony I want my kids to have. I don't want my kids to be, strung out on drugs in a gutter somewhere.
Yeah.
If they can at all help it, I'd love them to just know Jesus their whole lives.
Yeah.
And that's what we're praying for.
Yeah. It's a strong goal. Strong goal for sure. Well, sweet, man. Let's dive right into it. Kind of inside of that, being passionate about the local church, being a Christ follower, and then you kind of have our cultural setting, which I think is not all that different. I think in history, I think there's a lot of people who are like, our world has really gone to hell in a handbasket. I don't think it's actually that much different than the rest of history, right? I think we have like this like snapshot of America where you go, well, 80% of people used to pretend to be Christians. You go, well, okay, I think it is similar, but then you have politics too, which is like the face of what America is supposed to be. And what's your like? I guess what's your pitch for Christians and how they should engage in politics?
Yeah. Well, just to kind of grab onto a couple of things you said, I'm a glass half full guy. To my shame, I'm just an optimist.
Yeah.
And so I married a pessimist, and that's what balances out our relationship. Nice. But she would say she's a realist. So when it comes to the U.S., I actually want to hold on to what we've had, even if it was never, perfect. It was never the totally, leave it to Beaver type of, picture that we have. I think we're responsible to steward what we've been given and hang on to it. And my wife just texted me and she corrected me. She said realist. So obviously she's within earshot of this conversation right now. So she is on top of things.
And we have another guest, Mrs. Kochman.
And so I think we're responsible to hand on to not only to our kids a better nation than we got when we were given it, but I also think you look at the 10 Commandments. Honor thy father and mother, I think, applies beyond just honoring your immediate parents. I think it means you honor your forefathers, you honor those that are in authority. And so I think the net effect of that is we need Christians involved publicly, not just, in the arts, representing Christ, not just in education, but we even need people willing to use power in the civil realm for the good of their neighbor and for, dare I say, even the advance of the gospel. The government should promote the common good. Well, nothing is better for the common good than Christianity.
Yeah, I love that. And kind of the basis of the reason I started this podcast, 2+ years ago, is this idea of creating something that that advances the gospel, that it creates good, right? You look like, for me, you look at the creation story, God looks out over like a void, right? This darkness. And then he begins to create and he calls it good. And so then I look into culture and you can apply it to anything. Like you said, culture, politics, whatever. And you see a void of love, hope, joy, whatever. And then what can you do to create, with being like kingdom minded? What can you do to create that is now good, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've heard some people claim that the cultural mandate or the dominion mandate from Genesis no longer applies. And I understand the argument, the argument of that command to Adam and Eve to be fruitful, to multiply, to take dominion, basically to subdue the earth for the glory of God. I've heard some people say, okay, that doesn't apply. Why? Because they broke the covenant. We can't do that. Christ is the one ultimately who rules the earth, who subdues the earth. Well, that's true as far as it goes. But, there's other things in Genesis that still apply to us as well. I mean, that we're talking the same context in which marriage was given to Adam and Eve. I'm pretty sure we want to say as believers that still applies today, right? Yeah. And so we are under that same call to take dominion, to bear fruit for the glory of God in all of these human endeavors. Look, I'm a missions agency guy. I'm a church guy. So obviously evangelism, preaching, church planting, international missions, but we can't limit God's work to just those areas. I think that's one of the problems is that we tend to limit the work of God to those spiritual areas. We have this pietistic mindset where we're engaged in the spiritual realm. We're not actually engaged in these other realms of human endeavor as well. So we need to be doing both. We need to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah. Which is
hard.
It's
which
difficult.
I've tried to do, and
it's
sometimes
difficult.
it's difficult.
I choke on
sometimes
it.
I trip when I'm chewing gum, but,
Yeah.
but you have to press through.
Especially when it's double bubble, it just like loses flavor immediately, and then you're chewing concrete. It's tough.
We buy the healthy stuff with the stevia and with the no dyes or anything, and so it loses
so then it's
flavor.
extra.
It
concrete.
loses flavor before you even put it in your mouth.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like it's not concrete. It like becomes like wallpaper paste. I feel like they miss whatever the chemistry is in that. You're just like, what is happening?
But if you're running low on wallpaper paste, then you're
there. You go. It's nice. Yeah, I think so. I guess one of the issues for me, and I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, and then Ben and Darius, if you guys want to jump in or whatever, I suppose you can. But one of the issues for me, I think, in politics is that, and I think you see it in the local church with like legalism and stuff, is that you want to push the fruit of the Spirit, right? Or like the laws, and you go, when you go, oh, well, what does like a good Christ follower look like? And then you have these tangibles that you can check all these boxes. And then you go, oh, well, we want everybody to live like that. And so now we have to mandate those things, right? And then you try to add that to like legislation or local church. You go, hey man, if you really want to be a good Christian, you need to serve one, sit one. You need to like, do all these sorts of things. What would you say to like kind of living in the tension of that, Ben?
I appreciate that so much because we cannot create the fruit of the Spirit, through sheer force of will, through political dominance, anything like that. But I think the problem is there's ditches on both sides, right? There's a ditch on that side, but we're also all the way in the other ditch on the other side of the road right now, which is let's have a completely secular government apparatus that never acknowledges God, right? And we've seen the fruit of that, and it's chaotic and it's wicked. And we're worried about this ditch all the way over here on the other side. And so I think the most important thing is look at how God has arranged human society in distinct spheres or institutions. Three main ones come to mind. There's the church, there's the state, and they're separate. And then there's also the family, which is also separate. And there's overlap if you make a Venn diagram and plot that out. But ultimately, there are three distinct sovereign spheres. And in each of them, God has given the rulers, the leaders in those spheres, tools for doing their job. They have different jobs, and those jobs, as they discharge their duties, they're accountable not to man, but to God. So in the family, the rulers of the family, the leaders of the family, fathers, mothers, are given the rod to discipline their children. In the church is given the keys to the kingdom to determine who's in and who's out. Not perfectly, we don't know hearts, but we're called to recognize those who are within. And when somebody makes it clear through unrepentance, through a lack of faith that they're out, we say, okay, you're out, right? And Jesus gives the keys to the kingdom to the apostles and says, those whom you bind on earth will have been bound in heaven. Those whom you loose on earth will have been loosed in heaven. And that's ultimately through the preaching of the gospel that there's the recognition of, okay, who's in, who's out, whose sins are forgiven, whose sins are still on their account. That's the tools given to the church. And then thirdly, there's the tools given to the state. Romans 13 presents the state as being given the sword, the power of the sword. The civil magistrate is called a diakonos, or a deacon, literally a servant to God. And he's not to bear that sword in vain. He's to use it rather to punish wickedness and to reward the good. That's what Paul teaches in Romans 13. And he's teaching that not in the context of like Puritan New England, where everyone, agreed more or less to the same sets of principles. I mean, he says this writing under the reign of Nero. and who would ultimately execute him for his faith. So Paul's even able to recognize, even secular governments are servants of God in some sense. You don't have to be living under Israel's theocracy to also recognize that, civil magistrates, they're going to stand before God someday. They're going to have to give an account. So, one sphere is separate from the other, and they don't share jobs with each other. And those tools do very different things, right? The rod of discipline with your children is not the same as the sword. Don't get those confused. That's bad if you confuse those two tools with each other. But they're different tools for different jobs. And ultimately, each of those spheres answers to God.
That's well delivered description. My question, gosh, my stupid microphone. My question is just, where do you see that you think the church should do? It's hard to say the church, because the church, there is no the church in America. I mean, there is a capital C, the church, but that's individuals who are genuine from every different denomination that God would gather, and then that would be the capital C church, and we don't actually know who that is. We can kind of tell on a case-by-case basis, but in general, churches in America, what would you have them do differently? I think that's probably my big question.
Yeah, I would absolutely just have them preach from the pulpit on politics every single week. Pledge allegiance to the flag, instead of worship music, honestly. Basically just preach from the Constitution. Don't really,
Turn with me in your Constitution.
Section 8, Article 3.
Yes, please open in your pocket. Yeah. So there's obviously ways that can go wrong, right? It's each church is, in a different context, but I'll give a great example. My friend Chase Davis in Colorado, they recently had some sort of, to be honest, I don't remember all the specifics of the law, but it was one of these types of legal controversies where legislation was coming up for a vote that would have enshrined these types of promoting transgenderism among children and all sorts of things. I mean, you see it all over the country. Chase is a pastor. He's in Boulder, the notorious, it's basically the Handmaid's Tale. It's just the notorious, Bible hub of Boulder, Colorado. Obviously that's not the case at all. So, he's in a position where a lot of leading experts in church planting, he's a church planter. A lot of people would say to Chase, look, you've got to contextualize. You've got to, love your Jerusalem, your Judea, and the way that you contextualize the gospel in leftist progressive Boulder is don't get entangled in any of this stuff. Just preach the gospel. And then when people come to faith in Christ, then eventually you warm them up to the idea of what biblical sexuality looks like.
Sure.
And that's not his approach. He says, no, and he's going to just take a bold public stand. And that's what he's done. And unfortunately, the law was passed, but he was able to organize not only himself, working with the Center for Baptist Leadership, but also his church to stand publicly in the gap and to use our prophetic calling and gifting to say, look, operating in that prophetic calling really means ultimately that you're going to speak on behalf of God. Hey, because I'm a pastor, I'm an ambassador of the gospel. Obviously, I want to proclaim forgiveness in Christ to you through the gospel.
Sure.
But also we have the whole counsel of God's word. We know that God hates this. We know that this is actually harming his image bearers. It's a clear case of right and wrong. And, we as the church, we're going to oppose it because we're called to love our neighbor. We want our neighbors to be saved, but we also want them to experience temporal good in this life, in the temporal realm as well. So, Chase is a good model of that. There's godly men that are doing that as pastors, men and women, serving in different capacities and ministries across the nation. That super encourages me.
I think it is. There's a certain level of irony, and Ben brought this up last week of kind of, you have the left have politics have become their religion, right? They kind of proclaim an undying devotion to left, politics or whatever. And it's to enshrine something that is a more left, a more progressive ideal that is not necessarily agreed upon on the whole, the whole country. They're like, well, we want to enshrine this. And you go, well, we want to enshrine, I don't know, a statue of Jesus or whatever. And they're like, well, you can't do that. I mean, that's not everybody agrees with that. It's like, well, okay, go ahead and just use that argument for your own shrining. And
Right.
So here's another question. What do you do when your party? I think one, I don't want to fall into the trap that like every Christian has to be a Republican, because I don't think that that's necessarily true. But I think Republicans for the longest time have been like the obvious face of Christianity. What do you do when your party does not look like Jesus at all? Go.
I don't know what you're referring to. Like, Republican Party's great. There's no problems at all.
I mean, it's really it's like a hypothetical question.
Once that Epstein list comes out, it's going to show there's no Republicans on it and will be absolved forever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, especially...
And I'm going to hold my breath until the Epstein list drops.
Yeah.
Let's count. Watch.
It's an interesting thing to me. And like, I don't want to make like a bold overarching statement, but like, because I'm a Christ follower, like I don't like Trump. And I think that's how you should... I think that's the opinion you should have. Just because I'm compassionate, I love people.
And so am I, and that's why I voted for him.
Oh, so you have an interesting thing where 2016, right, when he runs, he goes, "Oh, I'm a Christian." You got, Franklin Graham being like, "Oh, I've hung out with Trump. Yeah. He's obviously redeemed." And we go, "Well, we got to take."
I'm a big fan of the Corinthians. The Corinthians are great. They've got chapter 1. They've got chapter 8. They've got the love. They've got the love in the Corinthians. And I actually wrote the Corinthians. I remember when I was there, and I was telling Paul, the Corinthians, they need a lot of rebuking. They need a lot of rebuking. They're not really like me that much. And Paul said, "Okay, DJ, I'll do just that." And after that,
DJ?
we went to Russia. And we started Russia there. It was great. Putin, thank me later.
Can I tell you, just as a real side note, I met a kid from Russia, had a very thick Russian accent. He got coffee from Northtown, and my niece came in. She was on a date, right? This kid's from Russia. I was like, he was not feeling my jokes at all. I go, "Oh, where are you from?" And he goes, "Originally Russia." And like it was like Ivan, it was Ivan Drago, like
and leave.
It was originally Russia, and I'm like, "Oh, I was gonna say Idaho." He goes, "Why would you think Idaho?" I'm like,
"Well, you haven't
okay,
met that many Russians."
That's like my joke. And then he's like, "I'm actually from Siberia." I go, "Oh yeah, the tigers." And he goes, "It's on the coast of Russia." I'm like, okay, this guy is like. Then I tried to like bridge the gap with chess talk, and he wasn't having it.
He didn't have time for jokes in Siberia. We were busy killing wolves, so maybe that's why my sense of humor developed less than my sense of fighting people. Yeah, Siberians are not known for their warm humor.
No.
Right.
There's not many Siberian comedy podcasts.
No, I can't imagine.
Welcome back to Old Communist Stories. Today we will talk about whose grandma died first. You go first.
I started making some Ukraine jokes, and that got him going a little bit. But
Okay.
Freaking Ukrainians. I hope they all die,
here
right?
You go. Oh, this guy here.
Very much hope they all die. I'm kidding. You know what's crazy is most Russians are also related to some Ukrainians. Super sad.
Yeah. So what were we talking about? About how Trump is terrible. Sorry. So 2016, Trump is a Christian.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2025. Probably not getting into heaven, but I've done a lot of good things. A lot of good things. A lot of good work here.
I think he should have just, and I think everyone would agree, the same amount of people I think would have voted for him the first time if he had just been honest.
Sure.
Which is fine.
I think it's fine. I do think that there is still like, it's funny that there is kind of like a right-wing cult following out there.
I certainly see individuals who
that is like, even though he's like, yep, probably not getting into heaven.
Profit,
which is like a clear understanding that he doesn't understand the
Christian.
theology of gospel. He goes, I'm probably not getting into heaven. I've done a lot of good though, so there's still a shot. You go, okay, well, that's
in
nice.
regards to gospel, in regards to eternal life, I think I'll get there first.
Okay, we're really going
I
on.
think they're going to really love my policies up there. Streets paved with gold. We're going to slash that. That's a lot of taxpayer money.
I will say that it is...
I don't know. Streets of Gold sounds like the most Trumpian possible thing.
Yeah, right. The Streets of Gold. He goes, we got to redo the bathrums, but the Streets of Gold are good.
We're reopening San Francisco. We're reopening the mines. People love the mines.
If he's saying he's not getting into heaven, Alex, I had $1 million idea that when Trump does pass from natural causes, I'm going to put out a sticker that says, make heaven great again, and then I'm going to be a millionaire. But now he's like not going to be there. So anyway.
Jury's still up. We don't know. There's still a couple years.
It's still I'm not saying that he can't be saved. I'm not saying that the gospel can't redeem him, just going off of his own statements.
He's not on that trajectory yet.
So that's a crazy rabbit trail. You're welcome for a genuine New Way Stories experience.
That was totally my fault. But what do you think?
What do you do? How do you?
People? Christians at churches, and I think I know what you're going to say, which I think you're going to say very well. But go ahead. Like, how do you tell people this is how we should vote? But also, like, the Republican Party's got a bunch of boneheads in it, or is that just what you say?
So, what a well-stated question, and I almost remember the question.
I was going to say, man, that was like a 10-minute question.
Yeah,
you guys should consider giving like a course on how to interview, because wow, like you could sell that. That would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, it's the question we've had for the last 10 years. I am a glass half full guy, and so I'm not under any illusions that Trump is the picture of the thriving Christian life, right? At the same time, people are disappointed, cynical about the fact that, we have this longstanding tradition in America where every U.S. president, pick Obama, pick whoever you want to pick, has to purport to be a Christian of some sort, whether they are or not.
Well, like 90% of our
I'm grateful that social pressure still. Yeah, I'm grateful that social pressure still exists. I don't obviously believe that every U.S. president has been a Christian. I don't believe that Donald Trump is necessarily regenerate any more than I believed Barack Obama when he said it. But I'm grateful that there's enough of a cultural memory of the influence of Christianity that even in the year 2025, there's still a recognition of like, yeah, of course I'm a Christian. Because here's the reality: like Christ is Lord, Christ is King, and so you should feel some pressure to swear allegiance to Him, whether sincere or not. I think the passages in Scripture, kings and nations will come cringing to you, right? Your enemies will come to you, and you have that in 2 Samuel, you have that in Psalm 18, about the true and better Son of David, and so. I like that idea. That inspires me with some hope, actually.
Doesn't it kind of sully the message, though, when you go, well, like, where have we come as a nation? You've had the last 20,
right. And you
52 presidents. That's
right. You have to maintain your prophetic edge. You have to call balls and strikes as you see them. Which I do, and different people choose to do that in different ways, right? I think if you're constantly calling strikes on your own team, you're never going to win. So I think there's some wisdom to say, like, I'm going to pick certain battles at certain times because I want, the team that's generally in favor of what's good and true and beautiful. I want them to win, and I want them to be in power, and then I want to call balls and strikes on that team. And I'm mixing metaphors here. Obviously, that's not how sports.
Welcome into New Way Stories
at all.
We mix metaphors all the time.
Balls and strikes. No, not at all. But I want that team to be in possession of the ball, and then we're going to evaluate, the strategy that's happening there. We're going to call things out. I mean, John the Baptist is the perfect, example of someone that speaks truth to power, right? He's willing to call out Herod to his face for his sexual immorality. So I think that's the model for Christians is continuing to do that.
Well,
at the same time, I'm just not somebody that says like, therefore, I'm not going to engage this process at all.
yeah.
And I think it's worthwhile for us
years.
to engage. Yeah.
That was me for a few years, that I am so frustrated by politics and also just like when we talk Christian nationalism, it is like apparent to me that a lot of people and more people on the right that are like professing Christians, it was clear that their religion is America and the Republican Party or the Conservative Party or whatever, and it's attached to Jesus. And I'm like, you're saying that you love Jesus, but you clearly love America a whole lot more.
Dude,
and it's a weird hypothetical, but if America dissolves, which it will. I know, don't throw stones at me, but
eventually.
like no kingdom
Hopefully
is
not
gonna
soon.
last, right? Like, are you still gonna serve Christ? Like, are you still going to, or are you willing to uphold the Constitution?
I do think
more
it's
than
not-
the Bible.
It's not really a problem. I don't think it's a problem in the sense that like we're never going to fix the fact that people are going to choose to be uninformed, and they're going to choose to be theologically uninformed, and they're going to choose to not reflect on their own beliefs. Because I think a lot of people are simply just not going to reflect deeply on these things, and they're going to say, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. Those kinds of people are always going to exist. But I think it's important, actually, that we have people like Alex who are really, really on the edge of evaluating themselves and being able to say clearly, I know the difference between being a Christian and being an American, and I know where my allegiance lies, but I also know that this is the way my faith leads me to help my country, and hopefully that will rub off on other people. But we're just never really going to get away from the fact that there's going to be a lot of uninformed people who just don't care to critically think about what they believe, how it's praxised, and et cetera.
Yeah, I think there's multiple things that stand out to me. You know, one is that Christless conservatism isn't going to get us anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a neighbor who flies high his Trump flag literally as a giant flagpole.
Yeah.
You know, he had his Trump yard signs from the 2020 election up for the entire time Biden was president.
Yeah,
right? Like and I don't think he's darkened the door of a church in years. You know, but he's asking me where my church stands on LGBT issues, which I'm delighted to inform him that we have the biblical position on these things. But it's also like, I'm glad you're passionate about your country. Go to church. I
think those people are
Christless conservatism. That's just you know, the party, the person, and the nation at the expense of allegiance to Christ is useless. But we also do, you know, have to think in spheres, right? So my duties to Christ exceed my duties to any other worldly attachments. But I also do have other worldly attachments as well. I have duties under Christ to my wife and to my family, to my employer, to my church, to my community, to my state, and yes, to my nation. And so it's really a question of what does it mean to Christianly discharge my duties in all of those spheres. And there's a part of the difference. You know, so there is obviously hypocrisy on the right. But there's also the question of like, it's the difference sometimes between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So Jesus says of the Pharisees, he actually says, listen to what they say. Just don't do the things that they do. Respect them, submit to them, obey them because they sit in Moses' seat. Just don't do the things that they're doing. Yeah, so the Pharisees were the religious conservatives at the time. They believed the right things. Their problem was they didn't actually live it out. But they espoused generally mostly the right things, which is different from the Sadducees, who were the religious left at that time, or the irreligious left, the political left. They did not believe in angels. They did not believe in divine revelation or the supernatural. They were Jewish in name only, not religiously in that sense. So between the two, Jesus, while calling out the Pharisees for their hypocrisy, also says like, no, but the Pharisees are obviously right on the issues. The Sadducees are wrong on the issues and on the praxis. The Pharisees are wrong on the practical side of things, but they're actually right on the issues. They're just not actually living up to their own standard. And so the way that we should, engage in the public realm and follow Christ is to both espouse the right standard and live up to it. And it's sort of like you hear from some people. I know you guys have heard this, like, oh, I don't want to go to church. Why? Well, it's full of hypocrites. It's like, okay, so you recognize that hypocrisy is a problem. All right, so like go ahead and be a version of a Christian that's not a hypocrite. Like go ahead and if you don't think other people are walking out what they espouse, if they're not walking their talk, well, go ahead and walk the walk. Like do it. You do it then. And instead, people use the abuse of the standard and legalism as an excuse to jettison the standard altogether. And I would say analogously, politically, it's like, yeah, of course, there's hypocrisy on the right, but the question is like, what's biblical? And then I'm going to support what's biblical. And when people are living up to it, awesome. And when they're not, let's call them out for it. But it starts with recognizing the standard and then living into the standard.
I think what Darius was asking about what the church is going to do. I think the easy answer is a very long play, right? Of like, if you want to see genuine change, it is not going to happen overnight. Like, especially when you're talking about legislation in a country that has been here for 200 plus years or whatever. It's in that regard, we're doing better than France. So that's something. But
that's the standard.
And that's the standard, right? You go, listen, if we can outlive 3 French constitutions, pretty good. But the local church, I think you reach your community, you serve your community, you preach the gospel, you see genuine life change. And then what Alex was talking about, raising a family, you raise your children to be Christ followers and to be gospel centered. And then they get involved in politics. Like you see the people who have genuine life change, the kids that we raise, they then get into politics, culture, creativity, and then it looks different, right? It can't help but be different. I think the tension is always in what do we do now when the solve is a long, the actual solve is a long process, but what do we do now? And then I think too, the reason I think that we have government programs for taking care of moms that need formula or whatever, like, or people who can't work, is because unfortunately the church didn't meet all of those needs. If the church was continuously meeting all of those needs, then someone wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. And so I think it's a long play that once you get genuine Christ followers, not just by name, but by preaching and by doing, then your country begins to look different. The local church begins to absorb more and more and not be like, oh, well, the government does that. No, let's take it back over. Like, let's start adopting moms and, single moms so they don't have to rely on the government. They rely on the local church, not in a not in a way to manipulate them into being Christ followers, but So
I would. That's the heart of what you're saying. I agree with. I just I disagree with the narrative that has been talked about for the last 50 years that the government got involved with welfare because the church wasn't doing a good job. I just disagree with that. I think when you look at the history of it, the government got involved with welfare because they wanted to steal the ownership of the lower classes.
That's fair enough.
Votes. The church. I mean, literally, you've seen it.
I think that's right.
You've seen a movie, right, where somebody drops a baby off on the doorstep of a church. We've all seen that in a movie.
Yeah.
That's literally 2,000 years of Christian history because in Rome, like in most cultures, when they used to drop babies off to expose them outside the city, Christians were the only people. As a matter of fact, in the early centuries of the Christian church, people thought that Christians were eating the babies because they were like, why would you want these defective babies? I actually just talked to somebody this week and they aborted their baby because they found out it was going to have Down syndrome. And that's a rabbit trail, but this whole the church, the reason that today we're like, do you just drop your baby off at the church if you don't want it? That's 2,000 years of the church establishing no other organization has ever established that we care for those people. and I didn't mean to like step over what you're saying.
That's
think
fair
churches
enough.
I think a lot of churches actually need to do much, much better. On the other ditch, one of my issues with a lot of churches that I'm seeing, and I'm a very conservative guy, but churches that I'm seeing that seem to be maybe stepping into pandering to the political right is that they're attracting a bunch of upper middle class people to their church who are conservatives instead of having any real dramatically thought out, intentional, Christ-centered, Matthew 11 verse 5 centered, Isaiah 64 and Luke chapter 4 centered theology of how do we actually reach and minister to the lowest people socially in our culture. And that is the other ditch for me, is like we can't continue down this road of consolidating. There's a lot of churches right now who are claiming that they're seeing record baptisms, and I've looked into it, and I think a lot of them are seeing record transfer growth, and I think that's fine. But like the goal should be to reach the lost, and not that Jesus is anti upper middle class, but Jesus is extremely very, very pointed to the people who have the least are the people who actually inherit the kingdom, because out of the poverty of their mind and their body and their spirit, they're actually able to receive something that people who are comfortable in this life really are very, it's very difficult for them to receive the comfort of Jesus when they have the comfort of all of this. And that's my concern. I get kind of bored with the missiology to the, and I don't mean to be mean, but like bored with the missiology towards the upper middle class, because I'm like, the conservatives talk about how SNAP isn't helpful, and they're right. But there are really easy ways to start just reaching the poor communities that are around you, and most churches really aren't giving it a wholehearted effort.
Yeah,
that was not a question, Alex. That was just a statement.
I mean, if Alex has something to say.
I think it's a very fair point.
First of all, I just have to say, like, Ben needs to quiet down. Like,
right. Well, listen.
Well, Ben agrees with everything you've said, so there's nothing for him to say.
Last episode, he started talking, and we stopped that immediately. You go, Ben, you're behind the scenes. We'll let you be on the camera.
Is his mic even plugged in?
No, it's just for show. I think to Darius's point, and the point that I was like trying to ramp up was that no, you're good. Is that I do think that churches maybe get a little passive now because government programs are there, and you go, well, what if we actually took care of people and they didn't have to rely on SNAP or whatever?
Well, okay, I want to let Alex, but
Alex, you started this. He wanted you to talk, and now he's going to talk.
I feel like I literally didn't.
He said, "I want you to be more quiet."
I heard, yeah.
Well, the difference in why people become more reliant on government programs is because there's rarely a human connection to it. It's a card, it's a check in the mail. Yeah. But when it's your local church, you see someone, you meet them face to face, and there becomes a relationship, and that hopefully becomes long term. And you feel kind of like if you're going to this person for help, you feel kind of, and I know this is not a good driver or solution, but like you feel that like, oh, I don't want to keep taking advantage or always having to come back for help for this. I want to
hopefully you're empowering
them, but like it just becomes such a disconnect, and then just free, and then if I'm not doing anything and I'll just get the check and then it's fine, and then you're stuck in that forever. And we talked about it last week. These programs just keep people in poverty forever.
They're not designed to help anybody. I don't think that they were, honestly, and this is some people would really fight back against this, but I just don't actually think they were ever designed to actually help anybody. I do think my conspiracy theory, if you can call it that, is that those programs were actually designed in order to keep those people down forever on purpose.
All right.
Let's Alex go.
I was going to say, Alex, closing thoughts.
Yeah, he probably has so much to say.
We've been bad guests.
We didn't get to talk about missiology at all. We talked about culture wars, and we didn't get to talk about missiology at all.
We're put a bow on it all for us.
I'll try. You know, there's so
You don't look like much of a bow tire to me.
No, I'm not.
He's a double Windsor only.
That's right. I'm not a bow tie guy. You can't, there's no point. You can't see it under my beard. So, no, there's so many good threads there to pull on. My perspective has changed over the years. I would have been very anti-welfare many years ago in all forms. Like I would have been kind of, like abolish it all. It's terrible. Like private sector only, like just one of those types of conservatives. And my perspective has changed on that. I don't think, I think to some extent it's true. Like, yeah, if the church fails, another sphere needs to step up. Same for when any other sphere fails, right? If the family fails, that's what the foster system steps up to do through the state, right? Like there are obviously safety nets that exist for certain reasons. But at the same time, yeah, I don't see the church massively failing left and right. Like the Christians have always been the most generous, giving, caring people.
Yeah.
Middle class people need the gospel too, right? And at the same time, I think there are plenty of churches that are probably doing a bad job reaching their communities. So I think ultimately for the church, not every church is going to be able to do everything well. Yeah. Our church, we could be doing a better job reaching out, but we've got to do, if the Lord's giving you 2 talents or 10, do what you can with it. And I love Philippians 1:27 that we're supposed to be striving together side by side for the faith of the gospel. So evangelism isn't just like, do I have the guts to talk to this person in public? Evangelism, mission should be the whole church working together to send well, to use the gifts and talents and capacities of that church to do what it can in its community. I think part of the problem, even like in this conversation in general, we were never meant to solve issues, this big ultimately. The kind of media, the federal government, like make us think that we can press these 2 or 3, policy buttons and fix massive systemic issues and cultural issues. And generally that's not true. So I'm just much more of a localist, to be honest. So I think that you've got to fix what's happening locally. You've got to love your community. You've got to love the members of your family and of your church and make sure you're putting first things first. And then you're reaching out in love to your neighbors outside of that. And then I think the overflow of that is going to be, that you're going to send missionaries and that you're going to care about the nations abroad as well. But you're going to do that in a well-ordered way too. So I think what we need is sensible, prudential, biblical thinking about those things.
Love it. Love it. Alex, let us know books. I know you've got a few books out there that people can read. If people are interested in getting involved, my friend Dusty Bender, shout out Dusty, is actually I think
that's not a real name.
No, I swear.
That's so weird that you know Dusty Bender. Brittany, you went to school with Dusty Bender.
Really? Dusty, well, he's my guy. He has a great
graduated
beard
with
like
Riley,
you.
His older brother.
Oh, there you go. So he is.
Oh, I know Dusty too.
Well, so here's the thing: is
Nice try,
he knows you, and because I think
funny.
he's being sent out with the Association of Baptists.
Oh, okay.
So you actually might know Dusty.
Hey, brother,
Bender.
man, I know. Man, yeah, me and Dusty.
You go.
He's dropped that ball hard.
He was like, I literally just met Alex last week. Not true, but yeah,
he's his house. We had dinner together.
No, but yeah,
he told me if I didn't go to the mission field, he'd kill my family. It was a fun time.
It's great. It's great. So yeah, just a little bit about maybe books where people can get them, or if they want to get involved a little bit more with your association.
Yeah, of course. So they're over there, but I can't reach them, so I'm not going to grab them and bring them over. That would just be effort. But
we'll put links in the description.
That's right. Links in the description. One is Missions by the Book, which I co-wrote with Chad Vegas. And that's really just how do we biblically approach missions? If you're a layperson in the church, even if you're not a missionary, that's a good book to read because it helps you think through, okay, who do we support? Who do we not support? How do we think about how we build a missions program within our church? And ultimately, how does what we believe look on the mission field, and how does that overflow in mission? It's really kind of bringing your theology together with your missiology instead of keeping them in separate compartments. Because oftentimes you go to the mission field, it's like, yeah, forget all that Western theology you learned. You're going to start fresh here. It's like, well, actually, like, let's just read the Bible and do things biblically. And so that's Missions by the Book. And then at the beginning of this year, Striving for the Faith came out. That's a devotional journey through Philippians. If you want to live a life of greater purpose and impact locally as well as abroad, working within your church and beyond its walls, that's what that's for. That's meant to kind of guide you through that experientially and also just plodding through the biblical text. And then in the new year, in January, there's a new book coming out, Ordered to Love, which is about how do we reconcile our call to the nations and our call to the lost and those that are far off? How do we reconcile that with this other Christian and biblical idea of the fact that there's an order of loves and that love and true biblical charity actually does begin at home? How do you reconcile those two things? I mean, that kind of gets at the heart of these conversations. That book drops in January. And then if someone wants to learn more about our organization, ABWE, that's abwe.org. We've also got a weekly podcast as well called The Missions Podcast, and you can find that wherever good shows are found.
Boom. Love it. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that this was maybe a little bit of something a little different in your podcasting world. Yeah, that's it.
It's nice to cut loose a little bit.
Yeah.
That's so great to me. Alex is like, yeah, I was pretty flamboyant today. Not gonna lie, this is a lot wetter than I usually am comedically.
Well, listen, we have the air of some sort of theology podcast, but probably
you are
not
very
your
witty.
typical.
That was helpful. That you're like a very witty guy. That was great.
It was nice. Yeah, man, we appreciate it. Hey, thank you guys for listening to New Way Stories. Go and check out Alex Kocman at podcasts, or read his books and do all the good stuff. And you can subscribe if you want. You can write in the pod, NewWayStoriesPod@gmail.com. We'll see you guys next week.